Good morning, everyone. My name is Apio Mary. I work with Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, that is PELAM, Uganda. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for honoring the invitation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chisauzi Derald. I work with Buganda Cultural and Development Foundation. I'm happy to be here this morning.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Abeka Muhammad Moki from Uganda Network of Businesses.
You're most welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nambo Zesara Kutesa. I work with Central Coffee Farmers Association. In short, it's called SECOFA, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elvis Kizito. I work with Uganda Parliamentary Alliance on Food and Nutrition Security. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Nabweta Megladis. I work with Nurturing Community Development Initiatives in Africa. In short, it is NCDI. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to see you too.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Jonathan Duvega. I'm the Programs Officer under the Agriculture Trade for Rural Transformation at CSDDD, Uganda.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hannington Chisache. I work with Slow Food Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Morning, everyone. Mogisha Ntai Imam. I work with YSED Uganda.
You're welcome.
Morning, everyone. I'm Florence Kasuli. I work with Kamba Uganda Limited and also Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance.
Thank you for coming.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Tumsime, Coffee Farmer.
Thank you for coming.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Victoria Namud. I work with Food Rights Alliance.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hussein Hirji. I work with Gali Investments Limited.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm called Nwagaba Dokas. I work with Dali Investments Limited.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexander. I'm intern at CSDDD.
Thank you for coming.
Good morning. My name is Julian. I'm also an intern with CSDDD from Sweden.
You're most welcome.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Myself, Nias. I'm a student from Sweden, also working with CSDDD as an intern.
Thank you so much.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Chaze from Uganda National Bureau of Standards.
Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning. My name is Orochi Frida Laura. I work for the Food Rights Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominic Adida. I work with the Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability.
Thank you so much for coming. There's a gentleman who came in as the introductions were going on. Let's kindly know where he's coming from.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Tumuhimbise, and I work with Mwende NGO Forum.
Thank you so much for coming. Now, this gives us a broad picture of who exactly is in this room, and very encouraging to see that all of you have something to do with coffee, meaning that we are going to have insightful discussions and also hear the different experiences that are coming in from the different stakeholders who are in this room. At this point, I would like to invite the official from CSDDD Uganda, who is going to make the opening remarks as we officially kickstart this very important meeting, which is about understanding where we are going in terms of coffee subsector and what we need to do to be able to comply fully with the guidelines which were set up by the European Union. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth Lukwago, our moderator, for that introduction, but also partly setting the scene for the discussion. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. My name is Herbert Kafero. I work with Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute, CSDDD. as the Programs and Communications Manager. I'll be giving some remarks on behalf of our Executive Director, who is somewhere in Nairobi, participating in the UN third round of negotiations for the International Tax Convention. I'm sure most of you are aware that there's been that debate for a fair tax system, reforming the global financial architecture. So the debate is still on, and the third round of negotiations is currently happening in Nairobi. But also away from that, today we are holding this very, very important discussion. It's a discussion that touches our hearts, but also the livelihoods of millions and millions of people. The conversation today is around building sustainable coffee value chains and focusing on Uganda's compliance to the European Union Deforestation Regulation and industrial future. And that theme is a bit loaded. I will partly unpack it, but also try to share some updates around the EUDR, but also what we are trying to push for as CIATINI, but also collectively as actors in this space. We know that we have the right people here. We have representatives from relevant government ministries, departments, and agencies. We also have the farmers, because you can't have a conversation without farmers. Then you will be participating farmers. And yet it's important for farmers to amplify their, to share their own experiences, lived experiences, but also these spaces are created to amplify the voices of those key stakeholders. We also have the media. We have different representatives from civil society organizations that are working on these issues. We have representatives from cultural institutions. We have representatives from really different institutions that we've been partly working with, including the private sector. So we have the right stakeholders in the room. And I had to emphasize that because sometimes when we speak, we get feedback regarding whether our platforms for engagement are inclusive. And I think this is an inclusive platform to deliberate on how we can build sustainable coffee value chains, but also share a bit about Uganda's preparedness to comply with the European Union Deforestation Regulation and also industrial future. This conversation is happening at a time when Uganda is hosting the Africa Industrialization Week in Munyonyo. I'm aware that some of us who are in this room were part of the first day, the opening of the Africa Industrialization Week. The focus is partly looking at sustainable industrialization. And as we talk about building sustainable coffee value chains, the issue of industrialization has really, really been at the core and center of the discussions. But I would like now to start from where it all, of course, started. We are talking about the European Union Deforestation Regulation. It hasn't just emerged. It was introduced, and we were made to appreciate that global markets are now prioritizing sustainability, traceability, and responsible sourcing. So the European Union Deforestation Regulation is partly setting the pace to ensure that global supply chains for key commodities, there were 8 commodities that were selected, but when it comes to the European Union Deforestation Regulation, which has been politically contested in the EU, you remember just recently there was a discussion around whether the deadline will be postponed or it is going to stay. And in the European Union Parliament, it's still being politically contested. But what we know of now is that for medium and large-scale enterprises, the deadline is 30th December 2025. And why are we concerned about the European Union Deforestation Regulation? We are concerned because Uganda is ranking highly as a key exporter of coffee. but also other commodities that were selected, all that are affected by the European Union Deforestation Regulation. And the regulation requires us to confirm that the production of those commodities that were selected is not associated with cutting down trees or deforestation, but also that these products are produced in a legally sort of approved manner. Because beyond complying with what the European Union Commission sets forward, there is the national legal compliance, that these products have to be produced in a manner that complies with our national laws. So the European Union Deforestation Regulation is part of the EU Green Deal. The EU Green Deal is looking at climate neutral economy, but also a competitive EU economy. So the EU Green Deal has a cocktail of policy tools, all measures, including the EUDR. I will use the word EUDR because I already substantiated about it, that it is the European Union Deforestation Regulation. So allow me to use the EUDR as I continue with the remarks. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that we are required as a coffee exporting country to the EU to confirm that we did not cut trees. And there is a lot of guidance. We've heard from government that there are a number of approaches government is taking, the territorial approach of ensuring compliance. But beyond those technical jargons, the fact is that the coffee sector is very important. It employs a number of people. And what is actually more important is that 12 million people, Ugandans, depend on the sector. Because we might need to go beyond the people who are into direct coffee growing production, but rather look at the spillover effects, that how many people depend on the coffee sector. The estimates are that 12 million people, Ugandans, depend on the coffee sector. And the conversation around coffee is not a Ugandan conversation, but it is also a regional conversation because different countries in the East African community also grow coffee. And it's not only a regional conversation in terms of the ESC, but it is also an African conversation because Uganda is one of the top coffee exporters in Africa. But also, the African Union in 2024, during the summit, identified coffee as a strategic commodity, a strategic cash crop. When we talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area, when we talk about strategic products, I think coffee is one of those products that we should be talking about. In fact, in Uganda, coffee is the second product that comes after. It's the second top ranking export after gold. But one that relates, that is closer to the hearts of people is coffee. You can't talk about gold because I've never touched gold. But at least I've touched coffee beans. And I've grown interacting with coffee farmers, although we predominantly really are not a coffee growing family. But at least I've interacted with coffee farmers. So what I'm trying to say is that coffee is close to all of us. It's close to our survival, our livelihoods. A number of us directly or indirectly depend on it. But also I would like to emphasize that as we talk about industrialization, it's important to talk about how to break the commodity export trap. I think when we talk about coffee, for a number of years, we've been trapped as an exporter. As a country, we've been trapped as an exporter of raw coffee beans. And in the context of the EUDR, one may ask, why are we exporting coffee beans? Are there no markets for value-added coffee? And their dynamics. Some of us that have been following these discussions were alive to the debate. All are still even aware of why Uganda submitted its intention to leave the International Coffee Organization. Uganda's challenges, some of them are long-standing, some of them are emerging. the coffee sector has been surrounded with quite a number of challenges. There are volatile global markets. Of course, coffee is one of the volatile agricultural commodities on the global market. But also, there are challenges of value addition, limited access to extension services, low prices because of exploitation of middlemen, because even when prices swing or they fluctuate, the middlemen actually exploit the farmers the more, because farmers will not understand issues of a fair price or minimum price at the global level. But the price that the middlemen set is what they will take. So in the end, smallholder farmers especially have become price takers than price setters. So it's the middlemen and the buyers that set the price. But also in the context of Uganda withdrawing from the International Coffee Organization, one of the concerns that was put forward was the fact that Uganda was really expecting a lot of support in terms of value addition, adding value to our coffee, which wasn't realized. So there are a number of issues that were put on the table at the time when Uganda really submitted its intention, all expressed its intention to withdraw from the International Coffee Organization. So as I talk about breaking the commodity trap, exporting raw coffee beans, I'm trying to make the case for industrialization. But also, you cannot just talk about industrialization in general terms, but rather contextualize it or align it to markets. Value-added coffee for which markets? Because as you talk about adding value to coffee, you have to really be mindful of the markets. Because most times we talk about boosting production, exporting, to the different markets. Now in the context of the EUDR, we are talking about alternative markets. But as we talk about the issue of markets, we must be mindful of the requirements of the market and that around 4 million coffee farmers have been registered. So it means the number of coffee farmers has increased. Not so. Because if you can register 4 million coffee farmers, it means the number of coffee farmers has increased, because the previous statistics of farmers directly benefiting from all growing coffee was lower than 2 million. So it means if they manage to register 4 million farmers, there is some progress. But also, we are yet to roll out the national traceability system. So there are still some challenges. And as CSDDD, we've been monitoring this and recognized and realized that some are financial related. We are short of finances in order to fully fast track the development of the national traceability system. But also government is leveraging support from development partners in order to roll out this system and fast track it. But also in the same way, we should not forget that the people that are holding the coffee sector in Uganda are smallholder farmers. So we have to be alive to their realities. What are their challenges? Are we not leaving them behind as we talk about the EUDR? Are they fully aware and appreciative of what the EUDR provides for? But also, beyond looking at the EUDR as just a tool or as just something that is an initiative being proposed by the European Union or the EU, we have to be mindful of what it puts forward. One, it sets a precedent of modernizing the coffee sector. I think you will all agree with me that our coffee sector has been struggling with a number of challenges. So when we talk about issues of data systems, we are talking about modernizing the coffee sector, isn't it? And that is the conversation we need to have, because the agriculture sector broadly has been really facing a number of challenges, including the lack of reliable data. So the data that is being obtained can also inform the extension services, and government can actually plan around it with reliable data. But also, when we talk about issues of mapping, I think we are getting into a digital age where we need to appreciate the issue of technology. We have to appreciate the issue of sustainability, because the future is green and digital, and climate change is real, because the EUDR is proposed or was put forward as part of EU's efforts to address climate change, but also the EU consumers actually put a lot of pressure on the European Commission in order to confirm that the EU is not responsible for global deforestation. So the EU is implementing the EUDR, or put forward the EUDR in that spirit of setting the pace to address climate change on one hand, but also trying to ensure that there are sustainable supply chains of key commodities, including coffee, soy, cocoa, among others. So the EU is trying to actually clean its hands in view of confirming that whatever products are put on the EU market, all traded within the EU, are not associated with cutting down trees. Going back to the issue of Uganda's industrial future, as we talk about industrialization, the Africa Industrialization Week is happening. I think it will end on Friday. So the issue around value addition is one of the critical issues that we've been talking about over the years, but also it's one of the urgent things to do. Although value addition should not be approached in general terms, because like I earlier mentioned, when we talk about adding value to our coffee, we need to ask ourselves, where are we going to sell this value-added coffee? But also, we need to go up the value chain. There are issues that have been put forward in order for Uganda to remain competitive, but also unlock the potential of the coffee value chain. We need to now invest in infrastructure and ensure that we make specialty coffee, put specialty coffee on the market. But also there are issues around branding that we need to undertake. The issues of challenges that we've been struggling with in the coffee sector, issues of pests and diseases, our coffee trees are getting old, there is productivity, loss of productivity, all reducing productivity in the coffee sector. All those have been long-standing. The issues around research and development have also been long-standing because we are not investing a lot in research and development in the coffee sector, but also ensuring that there is at least a living income for smallholder farmers who are supporting the coffee sector. That is very, very important because this conversation really, like I mentioned, cannot go on without recognizing the support that smallholder farmers really provide in terms of ensuring that we even talk about coffee because they put these coffee beans on the market. They grow most of the coffee. But also on the other hand, we have the multinational corporations. The discussion in the EU currently is that a number of multinational corporations are pushing for the enforcement to start immediately, the enforcement of the EUDR to start immediately. Why are they pushing for the enforcement? The reason is one. When the EU proposed that the EUDR is going to be effected, when the EUDR was put forward, a number of actors in the coffee sector started investing in sustainability systems and ensuring that there are systems to ensure traceability, there is data that is being collected, so there is a huge investment that has been made in the coffee sector. So now after investing all that money, the big players in the industry globally are asking, why then are some actors pushing for the postponement of the EUDR? In fact, as CRT, we have also changed the narrative around the fact that there are opportunities that the EUDR offers beyond the challenges, because we have to go beyond the challenges. The challenges will always be there. But what opportunities does the EUDR put forward? The EUDR helps us to collect data. That is one of the opportunities, to have reliable data, to map our farmers, to know where they are. I think that is very good, isn't it? It actually introduces the issue of technology into our coffee production. I think it is a good thing. But also, beyond the pressure to comply all the deadline that is soon approaching, we have to recognize that the issue of sustainability is a global conversation. It is not an EU conversation. It is not an African, but it is a global conversation. Issues around climate change, those are global issues. But on the other hand, Africa is bearing the brunt of the climate crisis. We are the most affected. So there are dynamics around those issues. But what I would like to emphasize is that the issue of making global markets, global supply chain sustainable is on the table, and there is momentum around that. So we cannot escape that. But on the other hand, we can leverage the EUDR in order to ensure that we reorganize our coffee sector. We have data, we know where our farmers are, we map them, and then we prepare also for the future, because beyond these emerging sustainability directives, I think the future might actually hold a lot in terms of other measures. We might be working around the clock to comply with the EUDR, and as we comply, another directive is introduced. So we need to ensure that the traceability system that is developed is holistic, robust enough to help us go beyond coffee, because the products are many. It is not just coffee. But also, we have to make sure that there is awareness that is raised across board, because the coffee value chain has a number of players. It has the smallholder farmers, it has the processors, it has the exporters, it has the middlemen, and the list goes on and on. But when you look at who benefits, it is those that are in the upper segments of the value chain, not the smallholder farmers. So they need to make the coffee value chain fair for all. It's also important as we talk about the EUDR and building sustainable coffee value chains. But also, the EUDR introduces a number of important aspects that are aligned with Uganda's agro-industrialization efforts. Because the issue of digitalizing our agriculture sector, the issue of mapping, the issue of data systems is linked to Uganda's agro-industrialization efforts. So it means that we need to embrace what the EUDR provides for and work towards complying. But also beyond the EU, because a lot of our coffee is exported to the EU, and specific EU countries like Italy take a lot of our coffee. But beyond the EU, we have to look at alternative markets, especially for our value-added coffee. We might not export a lot of value-added coffee to the EU because of the challenges with meeting their tastes and preferences. Because the EU markets have specific tastes and preferences that you might not just export value-added coffee. You might not process it to a level that they want. That's why they buy raw coffee beans. So there are dynamics. But also, in trade, there are issues around tariff escalation. That when you add value to an agricultural product, taxes go high. Because the agreements that we sign with the different trading blocks lock us into raw commodity export. So it is not just by design or by accident that we're exporting raw coffee beans. But the agreements, it's to do with the agreements. So we must negotiate favorable agreements that enable us to export value-added coffee. So as we talk about alternative markets, we need to center the issue of negotiating for better markets for our products, especially value-added products, but also signing product-specific agreements. And product-specific agreements can be for specific commodities like coffee, so that we ensure that the specifications, the certification, and every detail around a specific product, including coffee, is well understood, appreciated, and adhered to, so that when we take our coffee to those markets, the coffee can be bought at a good price, and the farmers can gain, and the country can develop. So the alternative markets are important, but also the alternative markets should be approached in a manner that recognizes that every market is unique and every market has its specifications and standards. So let's know the specifications for those markets. Let's meet the specifications. But above all, let's mobilize the producers, the smallholder farmers, so that they are not left behind, so that we are not just boosting production, but also ensuring that we align accordingly with global standards, with the requirements of the market, and also ensure that our coffee sector does not remain a sleeping giant. I can go on and on to speak about coffee and what we do at Siatini, but because of the interest of time, allow me to stop here and wish all of us fruitful deliberations, but also engage on those pathways through which we can ensure that our coffee sector does not remain in a survival mode, but the sector thrives and the people, especially smallholder farmers who support the sector, also thrive. Thank you so much for listening to me. I delivered these remarks on behalf of Ms. Jenna Lunga, the Executive Director of Siatini, and she sends you greetings, and she's ably represented here. We have a number of Siatini team members who are in this room, who will also be contributing to the discussion later on. But as we go on, let's ensure that we share as freely as possible. This is a democratic space. It is a space where we have to share exactly what our pain points are and also contribute to pathways through which we can develop the coffee sector. Thank you so much.
All right, we thank you, Mr. Kafero, for deepening the conversation by setting the pace, providing us in detail, including an update on where we are in terms of these particular guidelines issued by the EU. You bear with us, some of the key people who are on this program who are supposed to come from the government side are unable to be with us because there's a funeral service going on as we speak, given the person that we lost as a country, that is Dr. Emmanuel Yamlemye, who was a very important player in the coffee subsector. Nevertheless, we'll continue with discussion, and as Mr. Kafero has stated, it's very critical to get feedback from the farmers, their experience on what is happening. Not only the farmers, but the coffee value chain players who are very critical in so many different ways, including issues of standards, including produce and so forth, even those who are involved in the area of exporting, because this directly touches them. In our next segment, we are going to have a panel discussion to deepen the discussion on these very issues, and I'm going to invite the panelists to actually step forward and take a seat here so that we can begin with this discussion, where we are going to focus on the experiences of the different players to sort of try to understand what we need to do to cover the gaps. We have 40 days to go according to the schedule that we have to meet the deadline. How are we doing? What recommendations can we provide? Remember, whatever we deliberate here will be sort of put together and shared with the key players in the coffee subsector so that they can understand what needs to be done, at least in the remaining period, to be able to fix the gaps. Let me introduce the panelists. I'll begin with the ambassador, Dr. Mugambwa Paul Dogoto. He's a founder, Kyagalanyi Coffee. Please, if you can step forward and take your seat at the front for the panel discussion. I'm also inviting Mr. Luwega Jonathan, Program Officer, Agricultural Trade for Rural Transformation from Siatini, Uganda. If you can also step forward. And also Mr. George Tumuhimbise, a coffee farmer from Mubende district. If you can also step forward on the panel so that we can begin this discussion very quickly. Well, thank you so much. I don't know where the second microphone is. Please, if you can help us with that microphone so that we can begin this interface to hear the views of these gentlemen who are on this table. And we've heard from Mr. Kafero, who set the pace. But I want to start with you, Jonathan Luwega from Siatini, Uganda. We want to understand from you as the conveners of this particular meeting, what would be your interest in the next 40 days that we have, the next 1 month or so, as far as compliance with these guidelines is concerned, what is Siatini Uganda driving to?
Thank you so much, Kenneth, for the moderation. As Siatini, we see, as you you've highlighted, the deadline is fast approaching. We have few days left, and we still see, challenges and grappling. The country is grappling with some of the issues. It's not actually only Uganda, but even other developing countries. So now ours is to amplify debate and also to cause urgency on the need to see that these requirements or even the EUDR is needed. And also, as Herbert has highlighted, we need to see that what good thing can we get from the EUDR? What does it bring forward to us? What do we see? And one of the things that we see is the need to modernize and bring forward what is key in the agriculture sector, what is demanded at the global level. And what is demanded at the global level is the climate responsiveness, where even the EUDR is speaking towards, having climate responsive agriculture practice at all levels, and especially the African, countries that supply more of the products to the EU. So now, looking at all that, where the EUDR is giving us an opportunity to see, okay, we can do map, we can do map farmers, we can do a traceability system for our coffee, we can do a traceability system for our palm oil, and all products, cocoa that are listed, the 7 products. But then we see the urgency of saying, okay, let's use this as a platform to even see other key value chain that Uganda produces. How are they interrogated in the traceability system? Because we know that if you have a functioning traceability system, you can easily call for a better market, even at the global level. You can show that this is how our products are really produced. You have numbers. But here we even develop, we go for the agro-industrialization, yet we do not have the actual products that are going to feed the companies. Recently, you would bear me witness, I think you also read the same, Kenneth, and some of the colleagues here, where there is a cry of the company that was established and it lacks supply of cassava. And the question is, how can we set up a company for cassava? I think it's more of that requires cassava when we do not have a chain of supply for cassava. And after having it, that's when we can say, okay, now we don't have enough cassava. So, but if we have a traceability system and mechanism in place, we can know and trace the supply. And we don't even rely on hearsays from the communities, because it could be only one bunch of a community that has a bumper harvest on one harvesting period that says, no, we need even a company for cassava. And then you establish a cassava company a company that requires, value addition for cassava. And then after that, that kind of talk, we then see a slow progress in supply of products that are really required. So that's why I think we need to have the traceability system and learnings from the EUDR. Then also, we also have issues of specialty coffee. And if we are negotiating our coffee on the global market, and you say that this is specialty coffee, you have the numbers, you can even trace from which farmer this coffee was, and also what kind of energies that were invested by that farmer. So that it can enable supply and also trigger sustainable production and market access for us. So, but also looking at that broader perspective, this year we have many steps that are taken, and in the year of compliance. And one of the steps is having the risk categorization as the EUDR requires. And Uganda was ranked as standard risk. And standard risk, last time actually we were in the same hotel here, we discussed the risk categorization. We saw how the risk will hamper our coffee production and sustainability. If we are from Bukadef and we are supplying, we are speaking about a Mwanye Terimba, and the deadline is to this magnitude, and we are categorized under standard risk, what does it mean? What does it mean for our farmers in that deadline and speak of time? So with that risk that we are categorized. And also now at the global level, we saw the EU Environment Commissioner, Jessica Roswald, I think, Roswalds. You just forgive my English and the pronunciation, but she in her letter recommended and proposed for the extension of the EUDR, and saying that because the EU is not well equipped with the robust ICT system that's going to facilitate the registration and the effective implementation of the EUDR. So now this gives us a question, okay, in the deadline, when we even don't have an ICT system, where are we going? And then from that letter, we also saw another letter from the private sector. Name it, we have the Nesto, that had their also issues. They're saying, no, you can't propose an extension when private sector has been investing in this system, and I mean this progress towards compliance. You can't say that we are going to again extend. So in that discussion, we are not yet sure. They are saying the large companies, the large producers, I mean the large exporters, we are going to have, the deadline is going to stay, but with a grace period of 6 months for the strictness to be at least enforced in the loose way. But then for the small and medium, then you're going to be given a grace period for your compliance to be after 6 months. So now questions arise. We only have these days. We are not yet sure. We don't even have an official statement, perhaps from the government, that, okay, this is the stage at which we are. We need now, this is why CSDDD is convening this, is to trigger these debates, also achieve awareness on these key issues, and also to cascade the debate further to the concerned citizens.
All right, thank you so much. Now, let's hear from one of the biggest local players in the coffee subsector in Uganda, and that's Ambassador Dr. Mugambwa. We want to hear his experience, his take on these guidelines, and whether we are doing enough to get where we want to be. Ambassador Mugambwa.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Mugambwa. I've been around the coffee industry for quite a bit of time. I'm carrying with me about 70 years of experience and involvement in the coffee sector, starting a long time back. When I was still a young person, I was probably 5 years when I started my coffee career. When my father allocated me 15 coffee trees out of his 10 acres of coffee plantation down in the Matuga area. And I started being a farmer at the age of 5. And I've done that. I later on got a chance to work at the Uganda Coffee Marketing Board, CMB, Coffee Marketing Board. I was there for 18 years and all that, and I did quite a lot of work in the coffee, with the coffee bean. So I am just saying that for quite a bit of time I've been involved in the coffee industry. to the extent that I became an exporter and a company that I founded personally, Kyagulanyi Coffee. But I want to add very quickly that I'm not associated with Kyagulanyi Coffee anymore now because it was taken over by a multinational company, Volcafe of Switzerland, and so I'm not part of it anymore. But I've been around, and later on, government, the president, in his wisdom, picked me up to be the chairman, and I became the chairman of the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, UCDA, which I did for a good 10 years between 2002 and 2012. I was the chairman of UCDA. So all I'm saying is that I've been around this coffee bean for quite a bit of time. But today I am more retired than anything else. And this morning, my take on this is that I should have actually wished to listen a little bit more to get to know what's happening and how it's all happening and what is required and so on. I haven't been very current as in my retired capacity. I've not been very current, but when we discuss the coffee thing, the coffee bean, I would do pick and talk. This idea of the EUDR is sounding very new, and I was wondering how a lot of people, especially the smallholder farmers, are going to be able to comply with the requirements of the EUDR. I see a little bit of a challenge for the farmers if they are going to participate in the production of this coffee and selling it to the EU. For now, that's really my observation, and I'm glad that I have with me people who I've been mentoring. David, my son, is here with us, and we are involved somehow in value addition. And if there are any issues to do with value addition, I'll invite him to talk, because he's more current than I am about all this, what's happening currently. So for now, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And you raise a very important issue. You wanting to understand how farmers are coping up with this particular issue. And good enough, we have a farmer on the panel, and that is Mr. George Muhimbise. If he can also share with us his experience and probably also help Doctor to get the current status and the farmers, their experience. Mr. Muhimbise, Muhimbise.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and participants. I don't know whether I should limit my short presentation to the current trends, or I should also mention that growing up in Kabale, I grew up seeing my parents grow coffee, Arabic coffee, but later, I think in the 70s, early 70s, the prices of coffee collapsed completely, and I could only see people getting coffee from somewhere and taking it across the borders. But for us, I saw many farmers cutting their coffee, starting to grow beans. Since then, we have seen, like in my experience as a young person, in Kabale we used to grow vegetables, sorry for diversion, but we also saw the cooperative movement collapse and farmers stopped growing vegetables. And it also, that industry also collapsed. So we after a number of years, we saw agriculture reviving again. And that's how coffee came back and is now being a point of discussion. But to a large extent, I've seen farmers being on their own. When this EUDR regulation was given, I think for us who were in planning, I put in quotes, I think those people in government thought that the time is enough. We are going to work around it and be able to catch up with the deadline. But what I see in Mubende, in our district, yes, a good number of farmers are registered. But where there have been a number of contestations, for example, on land ownership, on who owns the coffee plantation in the family, those spaces, those places have not complied. So we still have a long way to go. Unfortunately, again, would have wanted, after Mr. Kafero, to hear from government, a report. What is the status? So, for example, I may say in Mubende, we are at 80%. But what about in Masaka, in Bukomansimbi, in other places? So, do we have time to catch up and be able to comply with the regulations from today when it is 19th to 30th December? I think it is a very, very serious challenge. And it's a dilemma for us farmers. And we can only hope that the 6 months grace period shall be able to help us to catch up. Or we can say that government will continue to advocate so that this grace period is extended. 4 million farmers have been registered. 12 million people relying on coffee. That's a very, very huge industry. I think procrastination, I was told it is a thief of time. We need to overcome that thief. Because if we are remaining with, is it 12 days? We are remaining with like 30, like 40 days?
41 days.
41 days. Are we going to cover the remaining 30% or 40% of the farmers who are not yet registered and compliant with the EU regulation? So I don't lose hope. And I pray that the participants don't lose hope. Let's all of us do what we can. Especially dealing with mistrust. You know, one of the things that has dealt a blow to this implementation of the EUDR is initially farmers were feeling a sense of mistrust, feeling a sense of what is government aiming at when they are registering us. Because they have been used to selling their coffee, no taxation, no what. They thought now they want to start taxing us. They want to start doing ABCD. So we need to deal with issues of mistrust by farmers of government programs. We also need to deal with the issue of corruption. Corruption in terms of people who are responsible to supervise, people who are responsible to implement. They are carefree. And you find that issues come, they are not implemented in time, and all of a sudden, we are finding ourselves in this dilemma. So we need to deal with this issue. Then another thing I think is prioritization. Can government prioritize? If it's an issue of financing, can we get some money channeled in this area so that the rest of the farmers who are not yet compliant are brought on board? Even with the short time that is remaining, I'm sure we can do something. Let's not lose hope. Government can come in and support the the companies that are engaged in registration, and I think we can be able to make a difference. So I as a farmer, as a social worker, working with a network of organizations, we deal with a multiplicity of issues, and those issues, when dealt with, I think, we can be able to comply, and the regulation, though unfair, for us, we see it as unfair. We can still comply, because that's how the system has been branded up to today. But regulation, though it seems to be unfair to us, as farmers, as developing countries, but we can still try and comply. So, from my perspective, Mr. Moderator, I think all hope is not lost. We can still do something and bring on board those farmers who are not yet compliant, and we see how traceability is followed up, and we are able to even export to the European market and other markets. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so very much. Before you actually put down the microphone, it would be interesting to understand whether you are among the 4 million who are registered, and if yes, what was your experience?
Yes, I'm one of the registered. My experience was not bad, because we had two companies which had representatives in the community, and they were using the community structures to identify who owns which plantation in the community, so that these people send staff to reach out to them and first enlighten them on why they are registering them, and then if they agree, because it would be voluntary. If they agree, they register them. And that's how some of us came to be registered, because we understood the basis on why we should be registered. And many other farmers we shared with in our cooperatives, in our groups, in our societies, so that they are able to come on board. But those who have issues of ownership, especially on land, and for example, inheritance, those are the ones which are still lagging behind. But we hope they shall also be reached out and they are registered.
All right. If you can pass back the microphone to Dr. Mugambwa, just for a second. We want to pick from his wide experience. We might be discussing issues that are very new, but Mr. Tumuhimbise raises a very important issue of mistrust, and then he talks about the issues of cooperatives. I'm sure during your time, when you were at the peak in coffee, cooperatives were very critical in, sustaining the growth of the coffee sector. And over the years, there are certain things that have fallen off. But you also have that experience, having been the chairman of a Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Now, given this kind of environment where we are, what kind of advice would you give the farmers, but also the government, so that we are able to comply with some of these issues that we are talking about? Remember, even with this compliance, we still have also other issues to do with the standards, because if your coffee does not meet the standards at the global market, then you will suffer the consequences. Dr. Mugambwa.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. It's true we operated under the cooperative system. East Mengo, West Mengo, Masaka Cooperative, Banyankole Kweteren, and so on. And under this arrangement, it was very easy to reach out to the farmers at the grassroots level. It was easy because, East Mengo would have a list of all the farmers and would know exactly where each farmer is based and so on, and how much coffee they have, etc. It was a very easy way to handle the sector. With the collapse of the cooperative movement, everybody was on their own. Even today, I think it is not easy. It's not this easy for people to reach out to these farmers, to have them registered and get them to be compliant in as far as these EU DRRs are concerned, you know. So I think it becomes important that somewhere, somehow, somebody is talking about the revival of the cooperative movement in this country.
All right, thank you so much. Indeed, you raise a very important issue. If we had cooperatives functioning properly, maybe we would not have problems of mobilizing the farmers and actually creating that, eliminating the mistrust that Mr. Tumuhimbise talked about. Let me go back to Jonathan. Jonathan, you heard from your colleagues on this panel raising very important issue, including Mr. Tumuhimbise suggesting that probably the government can actually go back to the EU and ask for an extension. Can we actually do anything within the 6-month grace period that he has mentioned? What kind of advice would you give going forward?
Thank you so much. That's a big question, and it is the one that is triggering debate all over, where they're saying you cannot extend the deadline again, and others are saying you extend the deadline because of the debate is still not yet confirmed, and which extension is going to be done. And what extent are we going to see the extension? Because of we are waiting for the Commission and the EU Parliament to take a stand on these debates. But then what perhaps in my consideration that we need to do is reorganize and reassemble the tools and not getting tired on awareness. I am aware that under the Cafe Africa is the body where it's the organization that is having the duties to do the awareness, Cafe Africa, in distributing the information and also establishing the traceability system that has been established, and the questions also that have come up are the issues of data, protection, and who is going to keep the data. And recently, we saw a letter that was addressed to the Ministry of Agriculture asking it to go and register itself as a bearer of data. If you bear data for someone, you bear the obligation of protection. Who is going to protect. So those are some of the issues. I'm not certain whether the ministry has responded to that letter. Perhaps because it had a time frame, I think 12 days, something like that. Dominic can confirm the days that the ministry was given. But looking at all those issues of data protection, when we are not yet sure of the data, and also the awareness, we need to, as I said, assemble ourselves back, and the tools is to hamper the awareness. It is all of us, not only the government now. They are holding something that is one of the greatest contributor to the economy and the Uganda's GDP. So we cannot lose just by mere failure to really comply with a few nitty-gritties here and there. But also, going back, it is an opportunity for us to readdress the concerns and the structural challenges that we have. And part of the structural challenges, we are looking at the laws and policies that are in place to facilitate effective implementation of the coffee and the issues that the coffee sector is meant to achieve. We have the Coffee Act that was it was really greatly amended with the first speed last year, and we see very few gaps that speak and respond to the EUDR requirements. But we have a regulation that is in draft. The ministry has it currently, not yet passed, but it would also be able to reassemble ourselves back to the drawing board. And also, an act that does not have regulations, it's really sometimes left like a barking dog that does not bite. But then, if we pass the regulations and also integrate the concerns of the global perspectives, if we have concerns of traceability reassembled within that act, the regulation, to effectively facilitate the implementation of the act, because the act has good provisions on registration of farmers. But then we need a broader perspective on what registration could be, so that that definition of what registration could be can be broadly elaborated within the regulations, which are not yet passed. So what we say is here is that as we are talking about the registration, the mistrust, the traceability, the awareness, the deadline, all those, we need to have the laws, policies passed, but especially the regulation being passed to facilitate the implementation, and also the issues of coffee that are coming up right now. Then I think lastly is we need to see government coming up with a multi-stakeholder approach where all related ministries, agencies, and departments are engaged and not left in silos. We have the private sector in the house today. How do we see them being integrated within these approaches? How do we see what is the linkage between the private sector interventions that the private sector is doing in registration of farmers and also the registration? How is it feeding within the government processes? And perhaps how can the government know what steps are being taken? So I think with also the ministries, we have issues. George is talking about the issues of land. Recently, we also had, in the same hotel here, we discussed the issues of land, and some were saying land is far-fetched, but then land is where we do everything. It's where if there is no harmonized ownership on land, then we cannot see any activity taking place, even the registration. So we need to have the ministries related to land. We have the Land Act that has different ministries that work with it, the forestry, the Ministry of Lands, and all those other ministries, Ministry of Trade. Let it not be left to one ministry or even a department to say, this is your thing, this is your coffee thing, but it should be with all actors and players. That's when we maybe see compliance. Even when we are given a grace period, perhaps we can, in those 6 months or so that will be given, we can comply and gradually respond to the requirements and dynamics.
All right. Let's now open this discussion to the plenary, but I want two specific people to make their comments as we wait for others actually to join in. What you do, you'll put up your hand and you contribute to this discussion, but I want to specifically give an opportunity to Mr. Gerald Kisauzi, who is the Deputy CEO from Bukadef, to give us his insight, because Bukadef represents some, key players in the coffee subsector. We also know that they come from the Uganda Kingdom, where there's that huge campaign of Mwanyitelimba. We want to hear from them, their perspective on what is going on, so that we can widen the discussion. But we also hear from Mr. John Chaze, a Senior Standards Officer from UNBS on the issues of standards. Let's hear from Mr. Kisauzi at this moment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth,
yes,
for the modulation. I want to appreciate the panel for their insights regarding the particular topic. As Bukadef, the organization of the Kingdom of Uganda, we've been on a drive to increase production of coffee for the last close to 10 years now through the Mwanyitelimba campaign. This campaign has been going on and has been undergoing different changes depending on how the sector is improving, depending on how the sector is revolving, and also depending on how on the growth, but also different other dynamics. In the first stages, we are basically looking at increasing the production. And that we did very well for the first 5 years, working together with UCDA and other key players. And indeed, that had to bear the fruits. We have seen production increasing. That is challenges notwithstanding. But again, we had to see that despite the increase in production, so we had to change and see where are we headed. And that could be now the value addition. The value addition, we took on that. So as we evolved, we had to change the strategy of our campaign, the monetary impact campaign, to look at that particular issue of value addition by trying to speak to the cooperatives, trying to speak to the farmers directly, to see that whenever possible, we can increase the value of our coffee. And this doesn't start, value addition strictly shouldn't mean clearly maybe turning the beans into the powder. It could start right away from the garden. How are you doing the farming? Are you adding value onto what you are doing? How are we picking the beans? How are we drying the beans? That's where the value, that's where we start to add value to our coffee. So that's where we started, but straight up to the powder. As time goes by, we realize the urgency with the climate. And that's in where even EUDR comes from. When it comes in, now we change again by trying to tell the farmers that deforestation isn't the thing. If you are going to cut down trees to plant coffee, in the next few years you won't have where to sell this coffee, especially with the regulations. Now we've been able to join on to the crusaders of this particular of the EUDR. We've been with them, coming to the farmers, especially we've worked with Cafe Africa, but also other other organizations and companies that were given the rights, like Pula. We worked with them. We have been able to sensitize farmers within the kingdom boundaries to adhere to these, to be able to register. We've talked through these trainings and sensitization campaigns. We've been able to try to fight the mistrust one of the farmers on the panel was trying to talk about, because we felt maybe you have the goodwill of the people as the kingdom. So we are trying to speak to the farmers and letting them know the EUDR regulations. It is now the thing of now that we have to comply. So there is no anything like the government will tax us or things like that. So that's our stand at the moment as the kingdom, but also Bukadef, the organization I represent here, that we continue even today to work with all other players to speak to the farmers to be able to welcome those that are doing the registration. But also urge the government to heighten on this so that we see that farmers are registered. We have up to date areas within the kingdom boundaries, within the Buganda region, where you will reach and people have never heard about this. People are not registered. Out of the 10 farmers, you might get to a district and you ask the 10 farmers by clear sampling. And you find maybe not even 6 out of 10 are registered. So this is worrying. It's a worrying trend that is out there. So I want to urge that the people that are concerned, the people that are doing the actual registration, be able to reach down to the farmers. We have also found a challenge that farmers are confused. Today, a certain company will come and say, we are the one registering. I think this challenge has been with these trading companies, the multinationals and others. They will go and do the registration. And right after that, in a few days, people from the contracted companies like Pula, they will come also do the registration. So people are concerned. Who should register us? who is the right person, which is the right organization, company, to register the farmers. So that needs to be addressed. I can go on and on, but allow me stop there at the moment. Thank you.
Before you put the microphone down, your organization is influential, given the number of farmers it's able to reach. We have about 41 days left. If there was an opportunity to support this initiative, do you think you can be a key player, and what do you think you can do? What kind of support would you need to support the government in terms of ensuring that those farmers that you're talking about that are not registering can be put on board?
Thank you so much. Ours basically is to be able to reach down to the masses. And that has been our strength over time. So for us, we can support through reaching, can I call it mobilization?
Okay.
We can mobilize farmers from all angles and be able to maybe organize them so that they can be given the information.
All right.
The information about this. But also we've been able to, over and again, invited the people that are responsible for this to come over the radio station, the Kingdom radio stations, the Kingdom the Kingdom media stations, to come and speak to the masses through these media channels that we think that the voices really get down to the people. So through the Kingdom structure, which has the Kingdom has structures across, has 18 counties, sub-counties down there, so up to the village level, we have people there. So through those structures, we can easily reach the masses. So we think that we can use the Kingdom structures to reach the masses, but besides, we also have these media, the media stations that we can use to get to the masses.
Just lastly, was there a deliberate effort to get you involved to play that role?
Certainly so.
From the beginning?
Certainly so. We've met with the players and we've been doing this together. Maybe we can try to heighten on this, but it's been done.
All right. Thank you so much. You've given us a deep perspective, and your commitment there to help this process adds value to this discussion we are having, because eventually we want to see how do we close the gaps. Now, let's hear from Mr. Chaze before we bring on board the other stakeholders. Mr. Chaze, please, on the issues of standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, the panelists, and also the moderator. Now, in terms of standards, certification.
Can you raise your voice a little bit?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, in terms of standards and certification in relation to EUDR, from the perspective of UNBS, maybe starting from the coffee sector, there are quite a number of standards to support the value chain. I think that has been there, and there are certifications that have been undertaken, most especially for food safety management systems, and we really supporting that. Now, coming to this key aspect of EUDR, the certifications here and the time given, first of all, I would request that usually when certain requirements are coming, there is always need for enough time. I'll start by quoting ISO 9000. When 9001 came into effect, there were always a transition period. It was a period of like 3 years to allow for organizations to prepare themselves so that to meet the requirements of the standard. Likewise, when we come to these certifications, this must be the case. Of course, as a body, we can help certify specifically. We are accredited in ISO 14001, which is, of course, a key standard here. We have other standards in the area of ISO 26000 for social responsibility, which covers such aspects that are particularly covered under the EUDR 4. And also, I think you are aware, I think in the previous session, someone talked about specific standards for traceability of products that can help, maybe small companies or large access the European market to be able to trace where this product came from to ensure that there is such compliance. So the key issue is that we only need to be prepared to work together so that those who can tap into these markets can. But as an institution, at least we have frameworks, we have certification mechanisms. And if there is something, if there are areas that need to be covered, then that is where we could need probably improvement. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chaze, for your input there. Now let's open up this discussion. Feel free to put up your hand. The microphone will be brought to you so that you can share your comments. We can begin from the gentleman at the back. Please state your name and where you're coming from.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Dominic Adida. I have 2 points to put across. I want to thank the panelists for the discussion. On data systems, one of the critical points that I think has come up from the last time we had a discussion was, and I think it also speaks to the aspect of trust, was the need for data protection, because we saw a lot of farmers' data was being taken. And recently, I think on the 27th of October, the Personal Data Protection Office wrote to the ministry, MAIF, saying that they had to register with them within 14 days. Because they were collecting a lot of personal data, the exact locations, the identifying data about the farmers themselves. And I think that is also another interesting development, because this, like I think in Herbert's opening remarks, we shouldn't be in panic mode, complying with even our own domestic laws in terms of ensuring that by the end of the time, we are in a good position to comply with the EUDR. But then, secondly, Andrew Yeko, I think it's Jonathan's point on coordination. If we are to comply within the required dates that are remaining, 41 or so, there needs to be a heightened multi-stakeholder cooperation, because all of us in the room will agree that one entity alone cannot do all the work in the remaining days. That is MAIF. And each of these entities have something that they can bring to the table. I like the question, Mr. Moderator, that you raised to Bukadev, trying to cooperate. Is it in mobilization that one can assist the ministry in terms of compliance? And a host of other agencies. I think Jonathan rightly pointed out the various ministries, land questions. We now have data questions. If there is that multi-stakeholder collaboration, you can't say that we can achieve much and be able to comply within the remaining dates. Thank you. That was my intervention.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Richard Obedi. I work with an organization called the Populist Foundation International. I'll point out 3 issues. I think the first one would be on the pieces of legislation that we have. And I think, Jonathan, you pointed out the glaring gaps. And again, I would call government. Why can't government take this process? Because it has actually the primary responsibility. And then the rest of the other stakeholders will just come in. Even in this very meeting, there's actually lack of government, I would say.
There was commitment on the part of government to actually attend this meeting, but the unfortunate incident that they lost somebody, and there's a funeral service going on. That's why they are not in this room.
I'm sorry for that. Okay, on the issue of registration, we discussed this, I think, 3-4 months ago, and I remember it was very intense. It's not even money. So what is the problem, honestly? And 4 million people, 12 million people cannot be registered, cannot be traced. Actually, we should even be co-opting some of these traceability systems on some of the other crops. The cocoa, the soy, maybe the cassava, for instance. The cassava. Actually, I was called yesterday. Farmers in Padibe. Padibe is in Lamour. This might be outside this discussion, but the point I'm trying to bring is that why can we leverage on this? Who is responsible in terms of capturing some of these issues? Because is it technical? I mean, it's not a capacity issue. It's just lack of commitment. by now would be tracking some of the crops that we know is good for instance, food security and all that. For instance, cassava in Lango. By now, this system should even be piloting. So you know what? We need to take this crop head-on, because looking at the volumes and the volumes of production and all that. Then maybe the very third issue is on data. My neighbor here has raised it. About 10 days ago, we were on a labor externalization dialogue with Minister of Gender. I was not part of the panel, but because of the issues I raised, still anchored on lack of, with all the policies, the regulations, the framework that we have, we cannot even, okay, the point that time was, why would you use Employment Act of 2006 with the amendments of 2023 to cover something on occupational hazard, and then 2025 to do something with the pension scheme? Now you can't use that to regulate migration, because migration is a very complex issue. And that's why some of our girls are suffering in the Middle East, in the Gulf and all that. Because at the end of the day, there was an externalization recruitment company there. Minister of Gender was there. I was there. Because I was one who raised that issue about 12 days before that date of the discussion. And I was hard on Minister of Gender. Again, Minister of Foreign Affairs, you can't do much, because the visa these people are given is called block visa. So if we are about 40 of us in this room, if one of us wants to get out of the 40, the one block visa covering the 40 of us, you can. That's why some people are, so beyond Minister of Gender, they cannot do much. Minister of Foreign Affairs can also do much, because it now involves issue of consular services. Minister of Internal Affairs cannot. What I'm trying to say is, Jonathan raised that issue. The ministry should communicate, the department should communicate in all what they are doing. Otherwise, we'll just be moving in cycle, year in, year out. For me, I'm very disappointed.
All right. The third point? That was the third point. Okay, thank you so much for your input.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Mugamba Owen Paul Dogoto, and I work with the Southern East African Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. I have a question, and it's directed to the doctor. My question is specifically on industrialization and value addition. And I want to find out from his experience whether, as Herbert had mentioned in his opening remarks, whether we should take on product-specific agreements to overcome issues that are brought about by the tariff escalation that discourages us to add value to our coffee. And then my other question is on, as we industrialize and we add value into our coffee and our agricultural products, how do we tap into our domestic markets and continental markets to find markets for these products? As global markets continue to become destabilized and we can no longer depend on those markets, how can we tap into our domestic and regional markets for our coffee and our other agricultural products? And thank you very much to the panelists for the great discussion.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you very much. My name is Frida Orochi, and I work for Food Rights Alliance. And a big thank you to the panelists and the moderator. I want to speak to two things. And the first one is the money, because we have been trying to follow the money for coffee, especially for the national traceability system, and realized that the Ministry of Finance ring-fenced about 13.2 million USD for that system, and they committed to releasing this money in a phased manner. And so now this really makes it very, very critical. Number one, the timeliness of allocations of this money. We realize that as per now, when you go on ground, the system is being implemented in an ad hoc manner, as has been mentioned during this meeting. And when you go to the last mile woman, because I'm speaking to the coffee women farmers who on ground, many of them were expressing alarms about this whole system because of the way it is conducted. They are even posing questions of, is there a company that the government has contracted to carry out this exercise, and the manner in which the exercise is being done. As it has been communicated, they are going to meet the women at the grassroots without even participation of the local government officials. So there's a lot of suspicion, there's a lot of mistrust. Some people are looking at it as an initiative, maybe to, register them in order to, look for taxes or something else. So this process really needs to be very, very inclusive. And secondly, as a country, I think it's a leadership gap, because we realize that when we had the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, in my opinion, they were moving on well. And we even had a coordination unit that was in charge of Uganda's readiness to take on this very beautiful standard and practice that we have committed to, but it's not legally binding. But now there's a leadership gap, and we are aware that MAIF has a role to play, but maybe they should bring on board other partners like the development partners who really committed to support the country to fulfill these requirements. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Frida. Let's get more comments.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. One, I'm again Abeka Muhammad Moki, the Executive Director of Uganda Network of Businesses. Now, in Uganda Network of Businesses, we're also trying to mobilize our members who are farmers, coffee farmers, to register. Now, two key challenges are, one, the bibanja holders. How do you register in such a situation? There's a landlord, and then there's a bibanja holder who is growing coffee. We are getting that challenge. So guide us how to handle that. Then two, there's also the fear of taxation. Now, our members have realized that whenever government widens the tax base, the burden is on everybody, including the members. And they are seeing this as also one of the ways through which taxation can be widened. So how do we address these two issues as we mobilize these farmers for registration, the kibanja issue, and then the taxation issue? Then two, we're also taking this seriously under Uganda Network Businesses, the issue of middlemen exploiting the farmers. Because, see, in our network, we have various categories of members, including middlemen, including farmers, and so on. So we took it seriously, and from the discussion, it's actually a myth. Because for them, they are saying, we want win-win. Because we also have farmers who are middlemen, and there are middlemen who are not farmers. Because you are a farmer and you don't grow enough, you buy from others to add on the little you have, because they're small-scale farmers. So they were fronting to coming up with a cooperative movement, a coffee cooperative movement, or society for dealing with coffee. But the challenge is the way government runs cooperatives. Cooperatives are supposed to be member-owned, member-driven, member-managed, but government says have Form 1 to get money. So there's that confusion that is detraying, preventing us from coming up with coffee marketing cooperative society in this area. So you also guide us. How do we tackle government approach of motivating people to start cooperatives because they have money? And yet cooperatives are supposed to be started independently by members, autonomous, driven by members. So how do we address, so that we fight this misconception of the middleman exploitation? Then third, the issue of volatile global markets. We're also addressing it seriously under Uganda Network of Businesses. Now, our idea is we also have a big market as Africa. Actually, everybody is now looking at Africa. China is looking at Africa, everybody's looking at Africa. We have a big market, but nobody is talking about this market. We're only looking at EU. So we are saying if there's a global volatile global market, why don't we also look at the African market? So Uganda Network of Businesses, we are looking at that direction. If that happens, what's our plan B? Our plan B should be the African, which is big, and everybody is looking at it. So let's also see how we dialogue within the network to see we look at African market as plan B. Because we can register. Registering is another thing, but compliance is also another issue. We can register successfully, and then we fail to comply, and we say lose out the market. So what's Plan B? Plan B is the African market, which we are looking at seriously as Uganda Network. Second last chair is about compliance. Now, compliance, we are now complying. We are trying to document what are the implications, positive and negative, for extension, and positive and negative for non-extension. We are trying to what are the implications. If we explain, what we explain. If we don't, what are that? Who are the winners and losers in both? So whoever has that information, we can be happy to receive as a network, so that we use it for advocacy. Because if we can show that those who are not in for extension, and they will be the biggest losers, and we have that evidence, they will come on board, and we shall have the extension. So we are doing that compilation. Then lastly is this thing of deforestation. Now we are here to talk about deforestation, but what's the reality? The reality is that our population is growing at a fast, high supersonic rate. We are now 45 million, tomorrow we are going to be 100 million. So what does this mean? It means people are creating many districts, people are creating many constituencies, people are creating many towns, and this growth on trees, no, they are destroying trees to create room for this expansion. So if you are talking about controlling deforestation, what solutions are we putting in place to protect areas that should not be touched? Because even you look at the forest cover, when they brought the Forest Authority and whatever, the forest cover is dwindling at a very fast rate. So if you are talking about protecting, how is it? So these are the challenges that we might have. We can register, but fail to comply on deforestation, because every second, forests are being destroyed for new districts, forests are being destroyed for new roads, forests are being destroyed for new settlements, forests are destroyed for new district headquarters. So what are we talking about?
All right.
Lastly, Chair, is climate responsiveness. Now, this climate responsive thing, we also need to look at it seriously. Our agriculture now is not organic. 99% is not organic. We have members who are promoting organic farming, but most of our people are still using chemicals. I don't know, even in the coffee sector, they are killing, they are using chemical weeds, chemical weedicide, chemical pesticide, and so on. So is this climate change? The answer is no. So how do you address that? How do you promote organic agriculture in this sector, which is also not easy to handle, but we can keep talking about it until we see how best to handle. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry for taking a lot of time.
All right. I think at this point, let's first get the quick responses, and then we'll come back for another round, because we might lose some points along the way. If you can kindly bring back the microphone to the panelists, and we see if they have some responses to some of the comments that have been put across. And I want you to begin with Jonathan, and then you can move on the microphone to your co-panelists. Yes, Jonathan.
Okay, thank you so much. The questions that I may have been asked were just a supplement, and to supplement what I was talking about, the issue of data protection, issues of land question. But I see a question on money for the traceability system and where is money allocated. So indeed, I'm just going to be frank. The problem is that the session is recorded. But you know, in the previous year, 2024, before the rationalization of UCDA, it was easy to track. You know, in the budget, it was really highlighted that this money is meant for traceability system. And in this budget, after rationalization, it was quite difficult to trace which amount is for traceability. And but the monies mostly that have come out have been from the developing partners that have facilitated this process to take place. For example, we see ABI coming up to support, you know, developing partners like the Cafe Africa, that is the coordinating body for the EUDR task force. So now the question there are, because you can't ask for accountability on such monies. We can perhaps come out so frankly on government, allocated money for this process. So that's the question that I also really see that we need to see what is the actual government expenditure in this process and what is government directly spending on. And in the same regard, I had the question on the involvement in the same line, where we don't see who are the beneficiaries in the expenditure lines. So it is then going to the issue of the participation. Who are participated? Are the people actually who are invited participated, or they even participate? So there are very many questions on participation, inclusion, and all that. And then the issue of Bibanja holders. When we go to the EUDR, it does not specifically show that, it doesn't highlight the actual need for land ownership on the EUDR, but even in the previous sessions, we were saying no, even though there is no specific requirement for land to be integrated in the registration process, but we need to guard ourselves around the would-be insurgencies that would happen after registration. For example, if I'm a Chivanja holder and I register, my coffee garden, then the landlord will say, but wait, what are you doing on my land? What do you intend to do over my land? Do you want to take it over? And perhaps those are the steps taken by the people who want to take over land without, I would say, the fraudulent actions or behaviors of the people who want to take land. I would restrain myself to use the word grabbing in this instance, but if I'm to say, I would say grabbing by even those that want to register. But registration only requires they just pick the coordinates and distribute. I think some colleagues here from the private sector that have done that process could also speak more to that area on how registration has been taken. And the question on land, we need to interrogate it deeper. And I see also Sekofa, a colleague, last time she highlighted how Sekofa took the registration process. And then we need to know the concerns here and linking to land and ownership that we do have to say. Then the issue of domestic consumption and efforts. I know that Ethiopia is the largest producer of coffee, but then we also brag that we are the largest exporter of coffee, but then we don't produce more than Ethiopia. But now the question there comes in, what is Ethiopia doing better than us? Ethiopia, majority of their production, coffee production, is consumed locally, or even it is added value too, and it is ably consumed, not registered in the export packages. But then we see efforts taken by Nakori. Recently, last week, we had the JAPA meeting, the Joint Agro-Industrialization Program Review, Annual Review meeting, where Nakori, in fact, NARO, reported that they are doing value addition. And this has been coming up. It's not the first time that we may be hearing it. They're doing the lotion out of the coffee, the body scrubs. Everyone wants to go for a scrub. I know men, after a haircut, you want to do a scrub. But then if we continue using the production, the allowance we have of having our coffee do more beyond the consumption and beverage as coffee is regarded, then perhaps we can see the opening up of more opportunities that coffee provides to us domestically. Because when we say that Ugandans, we do not drink a lot of coffee, but then the question arises, is coffee only consumed as a beverage, or it can be used with other more products? So we want to see the government maybe even targeting those more avenues so that we do not worry more about the market and the denials that are coming up. Then the question on climate, indeed, this is a big one. And in the EUDR, the regulation itself, it defines what a coffee is. And most people were saying, we had a discussion actually in one of the communities in Masaka, and people were saying, no, but a coffee is a tree. And one of the colleagues said that a coffee tree does not go to a certain height. I think doesn't go to 3 meters, yet a tree is regarded to be a tree under the regulation to be above 5 meters. So in that sense, a coffee is not a tree. But so those are some of the discussions. However, one other person from Slow Food will ask me, how about chisansa, which grows even to the 5 meter, threshold. What is it? Isn't it a tree? But then we also have questions, even in the previous JAPA meeting, where the NARO said no. We need to prioritize even these emerging, coffee varieties like chisansa. In fact, they highlighted chisansa to be climate resilient. And it has been a tree that is coming up, and it was really phased out in the previous days. Now they're saying we want to bring back chisansa variety, and perhaps it would be a good, climate issue or even a concern. The climate activists, the Roberts, will bear us witness on how do we draw a line between these regulations and climate response mechanism. Perhaps let me end here for now.
To the farmer. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and the participants. I want to thank the participants for their concerns, but I noted a few, though most of them were compliments. There was a concern about who does registration. That's a very, very critical point. If I'm already registered as a farmer, you remember previously I had my suspicion why government is registering me. I'm now registered. All of a sudden, another staff comes, they want to register me. They're asking me whether I'm registered. Do you think it doesn't take me back to suspicion? So those who are engaged should really harmonize who does what, where, and in which compartment, so that farmers are confident that what they are doing is being done in good faith. Secondly, how can we raise awareness? Bukadef has said something about raising awareness, and they have done a good job. But I think we need to up the process of raising awareness among the farmers, so that all of us are on the same page, at least on the same page on why we must register and what are the advantages. Somebody cannot simply say we are going to be registered and doesn't tell me the advantages, what I gain from I'm struggling on my own. Why do you want to register me? So those are issues that we need to take care of when we are raising awareness among the farmers. Then the other issue was about how our departments, ministries and agencies of government should work together. They should work together. Not this one doing this another one doing this, then this one doing this, and all of a sudden, the beneficiaries, who are the farmers, are confused. They don't know, they don't believe, they don't accept, and you find the process being delayed. Then the collaboration should be increased, collaboration between agencies of government. And by the way, I've told you I belong to the civil society. Can you imagine that we could have done better in the civil society if this responsibility was given to us? We could have done better. Those who are in civil society can testify. These are things we can do very well and present a report to the government. But you see, there is also suspicion between government and civil society, maybe because of our weaknesses as civil society or weaknesses in the government. But collaboration should also be seen as a vehicle through which we can take this process further as the days are running out. Then I raised another issue of good faith. Somebody could have thought that maybe good faith, which I meant was, you see, the EU is concerned about protection of the environment, climate change mitigation. That is correct. But you see, you don't simply give me with the right hand and take with the left hand. If you are concerned about environment, get concerned about the price which you give me also. Get concerned about why I should continue producing and selling to you coffee beans. Why don't you relocate the factory here? When you are here, you know better than when you sit there in the parliament without any representation from here. You pass a rule and say implement it. Is there any representation from EU here now? They have just thrown it to us to discuss. We are discussing something. It is like out of the blue because we are in a crisis. But if the EU had good faith in total, then EU would really be here, not only in discussing, but also physically producing coffee here. So we think the good faith should need also to be upped. Then directly, who was the EU in good faith when they gave us the time in which to do this to be able to comply? I don't think it was in good faith. It's like I've given you this meat. Don't roast it. Don't cook it. But I want it when it is eaten. So I think we as affected persons, we need to advocate. I've said I wish EU had a representation here. I would say, can you give us another year? Can you give us another year? You see, it's like I am 60 years, and I want my child who is 14 years to behave like me. Is it possible? It's not possible. The standards set by EU on this regulation were set where? I don't think they did some research. Maybe they could have done it here quietly, but I think we didn't make a variable input in when this regulation was coming up. So that's why we need to have evidence and then advocate and beg the EU to give us an extension. That's where I am. Let's ask for an extension for maybe another year, and then we are able to bring all these farmers. But also we demand for our take. Let the EU relocate some of the businesses that they are carrying out in Europe here. Then they will know the issues we go through as we comply with their regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If you can pass the microphone to Doctor.
Thank you very much indeed. This is becoming very interesting. Definitely the issue of compliance within this remaining period is critical, but I think I want to support my brother here. At least another year we should be asked for, so that people are prepared better. People are made to work out things better. But the point I wanted to comment on is what my friend Owen raised, the issue of value addition. Value addition is what we need. All of us is what we need. But I think we are starting a little bit late. We started exporting coffee in 1902. we took this coffee to the people out there in the raw form, and they started roasting the coffee in Europe. They developed the capacity. There are different capacities. And today, if you are coming in to start telling them to stop roasting their coffee out there, and you do the roasting here, so that you render their capacities, their installed capacities, idle, they are not going to be happy at all. I think the challenge still remains, how do we break into the market at that level? We do value addition, that's what we need, that's what we must do, that's the best for this country, but there are those challenges. People have already installed a lot of capacity out there, and it might be a little bit difficult. But this said, I want to invite David here to make a comment, because he's been involved in value addition, and he's in touch with the market out there. So I think it's important he makes some comment on this one, with your permission, Mr. Moderator.
All right. We need also to move back the microphone to the audience, so David can make that comment, and then also we take on board the comments from the other members of the audience who have something to say. Yes, David.
Thank you very much. My name is David Mugambwa. I am a coffee exporter, and also I'm involved in value addition. I think the short answer, the quick answer is in local consumption. We have to start with the local consumption, go regional, go Africa, and then find other markets that are not so picky in their approach. But I also had a few questions or points to raise besides this, and I was looking at the legal framework, because as coffee exporters, when we make contracts with buyers abroad, we have an obligation to fulfill them, to honor them. So what's going to happen when I'm looking for coffee to fulfill a certain contract, and parts of it come outside of the compliance zone? How am I going to shoulder that burden? Am I going to end up shunning away from European business and focus on business arising elsewhere? Or, because the risk of penalties, I have studied the report, and I think there's too much risk to engage with Europe and be found wanting down the road. The other thing, the proposal I have on complying is leveraging technology, of course, with the right frameworks to protect people's data. But with CSDDD in particular, the organizers of this meeting, I'm interested in establishing their stand, especially on things like coffee contracts. When you're trading with Europe, you find the European coffee contract. It's a standard coffee contract. You abide with it. It's leaning, it favors them. When you're dealing with the Americans, the same. They have the US coffee contract. Where is the African coffee contract? Who is talking about that? Who is looking at that? Who is taking an interest in that? And then going back to legal framework, when you look at our own local laws, I think we are selling ourselves short in this day and age to be bending over backwards to fit people's desires and tastes without understanding our own scope, our own abilities, and leveraging them in the market. So we're not proactive in the market. We are just jumping when they say jump. It's not right. I think it's unstrategic in this day and age.
Thank you so much. Let's take on board comments from the other panelists. There's a lady who had put up her hand.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and the team. We raised some of these issues not too long ago when we had this meeting, where we again said we need the government stand on this, we need government to give us responses here and there. So I don't know if possible, Siatini can maybe contact government, especially the ones who are going to come for this meeting, give us a small report on maybe where we are now, maybe some of the issues that were raised from the previous meeting, were they now solved, were there some changes, were there, give us maybe a small report, or organize a small online meeting where you can give us updates so that we can see that what is missing and maybe where civil society can come in to support. Otherwise, I think we are speaking to ourselves alone because, again, we are not having government. Even last time we were still speaking and trying to say, what is the government stand? What can government do? Then again, this time we are raising the same issues we raised last time, and still we do not have a clear communication from the side of government, which we understand this time around that they are engaged somewhere else. But maybe Siatini can engage to help us and see how we can have a small report on that. Then even when we are talking about tapping onto value addition, maybe the traceability can also try to see if right now what is our strength as in industries. Are we able to produce the quality that we are talking about before we just say we now want to tap into value addition? How good enough or what kind of quality of coffee can we be able to actually produce as a country? Yes, once we have that, then I'll bring the rest later. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having this opportunity. My name is Nias. I'm an intern at CRTNI. So I have a comment and a suggestion, actually. If you read the EUDR document from one point of view, you might think that it's a very holistic, out of reason document. But the fact is that it is more or less a top-down approach, and it is not in the good conscience, you can say. If it is in the good conscience, then it also looks at the ground reality, what is happening here. So my point here is that, but it is not like all is lost when it comes to the compliance issue or anything, because though countries in Africa, maybe as a bloc, or else other coffee producing countries, mostly from the global south, it is actually possible to have a loose alliance between these countries, and from a point of strength and reason, actually it is possible to talk to EU, because EU, from EU's point of view, it is from a reason they are saying that it has to be done by so and so time. So since we live in a geopolitical world where the reality is that multi-alignment means alignment based on issues. So countries like, for example, Uganda, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, Brazil, then Vietnam, if you bring just these 5 countries together, they are more like 60% of the coffee producers in the world. So that gives a very good strength, and also can be possible to bring some reason when having a good discussion with EU. So it is possible to actually reason with EU to buy more time for compliance, because since there is no level playing field as of now, if only all the countries in the world were like EU, then you can say that, okay, it could be done, but that is not the case. So it is actually possible to have a loose block of like-minded countries and bargain for more time and more other reasons. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Florence, I work with 4 Ways, Kamba and Delhi, as I said, but I'm also with civil society and PACJA. Last time we were here, we discussed many of these things. As somebody has said, we've never gotten a feedback or report. But we tried to contact Cafe Africa. I don't know whether they are here in this room. They were here last time. They were the ones who were contracted to create more awareness. They said they were going to give us those documents so that we can sensitize our farmers. We tried to approach them, but they didn't give us the documents. So I don't know whether they are represented here, because we wanted to sensitize our farmers. Two, I wanted to know this timeline. Because coffee, as Ugandans, is our crop, and even now people are planting. Yesterday they planted. Tomorrow they will plant. So what happens to those people who are planting today and they are not registered? What will happen after the deadline? And I also wanted a clarification, those who know more about this policy. If I have my private forests, not government-owned forests, which I've reserved for some time, maybe for my children or whatever, and I cut it and I plant coffee, how am I treated now? Because, people have been buying their land, protect their small forests for future use, but if you say you don't cut that forest to plant coffee, may I know what the policy says in that circumstance?
Thank you so much. My name is Hannington Chisachi from Slow Food Uganda. I wanted to add on her submission. Compliance depends on awareness, awareness education. We find that there is limited awareness among farmers. We always come here and, as men have said, and discuss all the issues regarding the regulations, but we find that it has always remained here, since the government is not also helping so much. After they stopped the UCDA, the organization which was helping to do the extension work to farmers. As civil society, we have tried, but most farmers, they get more information from the extension. They trust so much the government than the people, the civil society people who go in the villages to talk to them. They are always coming back, what is the government saying? If there is that bigger voice of the government to give them the information, they will not take it so serious. Also, on the issue of deforestation that is happening, and it is a requirement for the regulations of the EUDR. If the government was here represented, I would ask them what is their take on the issue of the people, on the issue of them supporting farmers to grow the indigenous coffee that that Slow Food is promoting, and that is the Liberica coffee, the Chisansa, because it is the only coffee tree that can support the climate change, and that can also withstand the climate, withstand the pests. but it has not been adapted by the government. It is not being recognized as part of the coffee that should be grown in Uganda. A few farmers who are growing it on their own, and after finding more values in it, but the government has not taken it over. Yet it can also be promoted and also support in the regulations if it can be presented well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My name is Robert Riachira, Executive Director, AGNET, and I'm going to underscore the conversation around climate change. Because time and again, Mr. Moderator, the conversation around climate change sometimes is misconstrued. And I want to inform us in the room that globally, there's a shift from fear-mongering around climate change to opportunity-based climate change conversations. And to that extent, allow me to interrogate the EUDR in light of the fact that we cannot discuss, we cannot have this conversation around EUDR without interesting ourselves with the issue of the emerging carbon trade industry. Because personally, I want to be on record that I'm a very strong believer in preserving and conserving our forests. When you look at, for example, our forest cover in Uganda, it's been really seriously been plummeting from 24% in 1990 to now just ranging between 12 to 13%. And that is not sustainable. And the conversation to which, why we should preserve our forests is because we should be able to look at the economic benefits beyond just having a clean and healthy environment, the carbon sequestration, having clean air. We should be able to see that our people, especially Madam Jekin has talked about, Florence has talked about the issue of people who are involved, private sector players who are involved in agroforestry. They want to see how they can benefit from that. And therefore, I think that the conversation needs to, we need to read the EUDR regulations in tandem with the carbon trade regulations that our government recently gazetted to see, for example, if we say that let's preserve the forests, can we also, on the other hand, see how people can benefit, on the alternative? Because people don't make sense when you say, please preserve the forest, but they cannot economically benefit from that. And I think that is what the convention should take. When you look at, for example, those of us that have been following the conversations at COP, right now the COP, Conference of Parties, taking place in Brazil, which has been dubbed as a forest COP. The conversation around deforestation has been very central. And the EU is very active in that COP, trying to make sure that it galvanizes all the countries to appreciate the need to have the EUDR implemented in all the respective countries. And as you're aware, we've been losing about 12 million hectares per year of the forest cover globally. Of course, the Amazon is also not an exception. In Uganda, when you look at, for example, where have we lost our forest cover? When you talk about the Bugoma forest, which I'm personally fighting to save in courts of law, it is under threat because of people carrying out sugarcane plantation. When you talk about Mabira forest, it is the sugarcane plantation companies. But why is it that we don't seem to have the numbers where, for example, forests have been cut down to plant coffee plantations? But you see the EUDR is focusing on coffee, not sugarcane, which is actually under threat. Then finally, do you think, and I want to ask Jonathan, my brother, do you think that recently the government received $31 million US under what is dubbed as the result-based payment under the GCF, the Green Climate Fund? Do you think, because, I mean, Uganda became the first country to receive this money. I was part of a Commonwealth meeting where Uganda was being, projected as one of the best performing countries as far as, issues of climate response is concerned, and we were able to receive this money. That's about 108 billion Uganda shillings. Do you think that there is an incentive that, for example, if also we observe the EUDR, there will be incentives to see that probably the money can be able to come and we see how we can capacitate, because at the end of the day, there should be cost-benefit analysis. that how do we ensure that farmers really adhere to these guidelines, but also at the same time can be able to benefit? Because when you look at, for example, the global climate financing architecture, the conversation is that we should be able to see that we capacitate, the farmers, because agriculture must be looked at it from two lenses. That's a victim of climate change, but at the same time a contributor to climate change. So the conversation must be holistic, so that at the end of the day, we're able to have, support people within the value chain. And of course, the issue that colleagues have raised about the need to engage with government. I personally shudder when UCDA was collapsed. Some of us tried to put up a spirited fight to save UCDA. But now again, another agency under Coffee Africa is the one which is coming in the position of government. So now, if they are not there to really play the role which UCDA was playing, unfortunately, the former ED of UCDA, Dr. Yereme Pastor, may he so rest in peace. But I mean, most of us tried to support him to say that we saved the life of UCDA, but we never succeeded. So now it means that now, in the absence of UCDA, another agency, quote unquote, is actually there to try and take over the role of government. But as you can see from the room, it is actually not doing what it's supposed to do. We were here with them the other time. They promised to give us information. We don't seem to have the information, and therefore we seem to continue to, operate in the same vacuum that actually UCDA has left. And I think that is very critical as we move towards, the next 41 days. Thank you so much.
Key sentiments actually coming out on the part of the government not providing timely information. Indeed, we should be having a report by now pointing out the progress that has been made and the gaps that still exist. Probably by now we should even be knowing where the farmers who are not registered are actually located, so that action can be taken to be able to ensure that everybody is on board. But let's hear from the panel, and then we continue with this discussion.
Yes, thank you so much, members. I'm very certain that the people really even give us the information, If the feedback is very enriching, and it is helping us also learn, and also perhaps even unlearn the issues that we perhaps were thinking about, even the government strategies. It helps to, to revive. But one of the key takeaways that I will first highlight were issues of technology and leveraging technology. This is something that we have to push the government to take over. I mean, also to embrace technological advancements, because without technology, perhaps we will not see value addition strategies that we are also looking at. And also looking at the key opportunities, the National Development Plan 4 and the tenfold growth strategy is looking at agro-industrialization. And then having agro-industrialization, you cannot discern it away from technology. So it is then our duty and mandate as civil society and also the other actors to see that this comes to fruition and we have these acted upon. And then this is now a take-home, the contract, coffee contract. I will not specifically give my recommendation to it, given my reservation to that. But I really appreciate that we are having a lot of legal questions beyond the concerns that come up, but there are a lot of legal questions. Looking at the contract farming that is taking place in several sectors, including even coffee. Contract farming is taking place. People are securing their suppliers by giving them contracts and giving them the required inputs. So they tie you to a product so that you easily produce for them. Everyone who is in business really has to secure their market. And also now having a coffee contract, a standard coffee contract. It's more of a standard agreement. And having this is it's a very big opportunity, because you do not have to divert away from your interests. As these other global actors have their standard coffee contracts and agreements, then they protect and preserve their interests vis-a-vis us. So you negotiate within their interests versus, you know your interests. So you have to compromise. So this is something that perhaps we're going to interrogate deeper and also see what key demands can we put in place and what is really the importance and how can we push forward these key issues of having a contract. And the others, I think the traceability, this will be talked about by my other colleagues. But looking at unpacking the EUDR progress, this is something that we really have to, what I'm going to confirm here is that CSDDD is going to engage Cafe Africa and other task force members, including the government, to have a regional online session where we want to see what progress is made in Uganda, what progress is made in Rwanda, in Kenya, in Tanzania, and Ethiopia. What progress? What is the progress? What is the status quo? Are we in this thing alone of non-compliance, or even other actors are having similar problems? And I'm very certain that this communication is going to come out. I'm going to push for it personally to see that we have such an online engagement to have an update on these key issues that come up from the relevant bodies. And speaking about the loose block, I'm really I'm amazed by this as well, because last year when the EAC, East African Community, East African EALA, came in Uganda, we raised these issues. We said, you as EALA, come up with a common voice. But the issue was understanding this particular regulation, and also the regulations that come up. To what extent can EALA, because we are not in isolation as Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. And that's where they beat us from, because we go negotiate as individual countries. And yet, if we go as a bloc, we have a negotiation capacity and power. So that is something that, and the EALA members promised to say, okay, we are going to negotiate, we are going to have a voice, but then you see the awareness on these key particular lines. And we have very many opportunities, and hopefully in these coming days, we are going to have an engagement with EALA. We promise to front it again to see the voice coming up, and the question on time, it's a big question. And then what I'll end with, I think I have two questions more. One that I want also to speak to is the private forest. And the EUDR defines a forest to mean land spanning more than 0.5 meters, rather hectares, with trees higher than 5 meters and a canopy cover of more than 10%. So when you describe this definition, literally we interrogated it from our literal interpretation was land that is above 1 acre, in Uganda's sense, 1 acre, with trees that are above 5 meters. Remember I talked about the meters, where a coffee tree does not go beyond 3 meters, so that doesn't constitute a tree. So neither does it constitute a forest. Then a canopy is that dark thing, that comes up where you move in. When we move in a forest, you find those dark corners where trees are intertwined from the top. I don't know, people from the forest sector can easily describe it, but that thing that intertwines. So the EUDR looks at it as a natural thing, and a forest that is naturally grown, you know. If it is, it may not be, it may be your forest, a private-owned forest, but it has leveled to comprise these key elements of what it would mean as a tree, as a forest. So then, even when it is a private, it constitutes as a forest under EUDR. That's one of the dynamics, and perhaps we need to interrogate as well them further and deeply to see what are these concerns if someone has their own land and the issues. The issue of GCF fund, this is something that we are also waiting the government to see which expenditure lines are going to cause impact and how are people going to benefit from this this fund. Who is going to be interrogated? So since it's in the public, we have an opportunity to interrogate it as well. So we wait for now. That's what I can say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. If you can hand over the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think if we were conversing in our language, maybe Jonathan would have found it easy to define what a canopy is. People who speak Swahili, who speak Runyarwanda, who speak Arabic, maybe, think they know how to define canopy. But you can imagine, we have to wait for somebody to define for us what a canopy is, as if there were no forests here, we are trying to create them. But you know, the forests were here. We are not creating any forest. And we are not going to create any forest. Whatever forest was destroyed, we have lost it. We can only plant trees. So that's aside. Then the other issue is sentiments about, we have discussed these issues endlessly, and we don't have an answer. Ladies and gentlemen, at least we have an opportunity to discuss them. That opportunity, let's take advantage of it, so that we are able to make a difference. And that's where we go back to good faith of the EUDR. When you look at the figures of forest cover that we lose as a country called Uganda, it's alarming. You wonder whether in 30 years we shall have anything. In a district where I come from, when you stand on a hill, you can see up to there, the horizon. You don't see any tree, you don't see any forest. So it is important that we take advantage of the good faith while we're discussing issues that are not favorable for us in the EUDR. So I suggest that the discussions on the EUDR continues, especially exploring possible ways of ensuring that farmers comply. As a country, we comply. We take advantage and benefit. And the coffee industry does not collapse in our hands. The future generation will blame us because this EUDR was passed on to us and we folded our hands. Two, I want us to urge government. Maybe they will give us an opportunity to pay attention to the agreements that we signed with the EU and other big agencies. That government should also consider the agreements that are already made. Is there a possibility of renegotiating some of those agreements so that we struggle to make it better? We may not do it all in one generation or two generations, but we struggle to make a contribution and do it better in terms of influencing the agreements that we make for the benefit of our country, of the future generations. Then how can we engage farmers to participate in this? You see, farmers cannot be the farmers who generate the coffee, but they are only at the tail end of discussions, of implementation, of regulations. Let's find a way of engaging farmers directly to participate, even in what you may think they are big things. Somebody talked about the top-down. The top-down, somebody sits in Brussels and writes a regulation, and my peasant in Muwende has to implement it. So let's try to get the farmers engaged. Finally, I think it is important that we have this discussion. I want to thank CSDDD for organizing such a forum. That's why I don't give up, and I ask friends that you don't give up. It is our business to talk until somebody listens. Whether it is our government, whether it is EU, whether it is somebody else, let's keep talking. Maybe somebody will listen and something will come out of this discussion. I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And then finally, we'll hear from Doctor.
Thank you very much, moderator, and everybody. I want to thank Siatini for organizing this important meeting and for inviting us, as many of us as we came. Thank you very much indeed. This is an important gathering where we discuss issues directly affecting us today and tomorrow. Today we're growing the coffee. Are we able to sustainably grow the same tomorrow? This is important. I want to support my friend here, the farmer, who says we need to involve the farmers as much as possible. In all these discussions, let's, as much as possible, try and get them represented here so that we hear their views and get to know, and they also participate and give their views in as far as these, what they are doing is concerned. I think it's important. This is just to appreciate you all, Mr. Moderator, for the time and for the meeting. We really appreciate. I think the future is there to tell that this was an important thing. Thank you very much indeed.
All right, a round of applause for the panelists as they resume their seats. We thank them for making the time to share deeply on the issues. And what seems to be coming out that there is still a gap. We have 41 days to go before this deadline actually catches up with us. The question is there room for renegotiation? Can we go back to the EU and actually tell them that give us another extension? There's a proposal that we should stick for an extension of 1 year to be able to deal with the issues that are remaining. But the question is, can we actually do it within that 1 year? Can we leverage the different stakeholders that are in the coffee subsector, people like Bukadef? Can we leverage the deep knowledge and understanding of a senior assistant like Dr. Who has just been on the panel to be able to deal with the challenges that we have failed to resolve over the time? Because it's very important for us to actually remain in the EU market. Although there have been also proposals here that we can also think about the local market, the African market, but also other countries in China who may not have such stringent requirements. But at the end of the day, as the world becomes more and more sophisticated, it's very important for us to meet certain standards, because if we don't, then we'll be left out. I liked the idea shared by one of the people in the audience who actually said, it's time also to start thinking about standards and pay attention to other crops, which are also very important on the world market, because you never know, in the near future, there will be some other key proposals, and we may be caught off guard, just the way we have been when it came to the coffee subsector. I want to invite back Jonathan to the table, because we are now coming to the end of this particular discussion, and he will make a few comments on the way forward. What kind of undertakings are Siatini making in order to provide an update to the different stakeholders? But because indeed, like you noted, we seem to be talking to ourselves time and again, and the government is not providing the necessary information. So we want to get an update. The latest report, for instance, the last time we were here, we were told there were about 4 million coffee farmers that had been registered. Has this changed? Because it's over 3 months now or so. Has it changed? What are the efforts that are being taken to actually conclude with those that have not been registered? We know very well the statistics tell us that we have about 12 million households in this country that directly deal with coffee. The question is, if we are only we have managed to register only 4 million farmers, where the rest, they might be smallholder farmers, but they are very critical because at the end of the day, they contribute to the volume that we eventually send out there and consider as the output in terms of the number of bags that we produce annually. Jonathan, if you're around the room, please can you step forward and provide the way forward. If he's not here, I think he has stepped outside. We wait just a little bit for him to come in, but to just emphasize that this is an engagement that needs to go on from all angles. We know that we have farmers, we have people in civil society who are interested in issues of farming, but at the same time we have government, which is also a key player. Unfortunately, we are in a political season where parliamentarians are somehow diverted. They should be also asking questions because at the end of the day, they represent the so many voices that we are looking at, including the so many farmers who benefit from the coffee subsector. Unfortunately, they are deep in campaigns, and it seems they are not paying a lot of attention to some of these issues. But we should also be hearing some voices on the campaign trail about coffee, because the people who are running for office at the end of the day must understand how important some of these crops are to the ordinary Ugandan. So let me invite Jonathan to come and speak to us and give us the way forward. We want to hear, there have been demands from the audience about CRT making a follow-up to ensure that the stakeholders have an updated report from the government. Jonathan.
Thank you so much, moderator and participants. This has been an engagement. You know, when I think about the engagement, I was also worried at first. It's like, okay, we did not have the incident happened of the passing on of the former ED. But then it has helped us to first panel beat within ourselves so that we can now go and engage with the relevant stakeholders. And as I had earlier really commented during the panel discussion, we are going to have a follow-up online update meeting and to see that beyond even Africa, beyond Uganda, where are we in the region? And where are we within ourselves as the partner states, EAC? Where are we? Where is Kenya? Where is Uganda? Where is Tanzania? So we are going to have that follow-up discussion, and we are going to engage with Cafe Africa as the convener of the task force first, and then later we have particular stakeholders that will give us key updates on that progress of the EUDR. But still, we have got insights and enabling talking points that will be able to have key issues that we will raise again before the East African members of parliament. And this is a meeting that is also going to happen because we know that EALA is sitting in Uganda in I think November, this month, 27th, around there. That's where we are going to have an interface. And as Siatini, we can't leave coffee out of this discussion. We have to interrogate the EALA stand on this. What are they going to say about it? Because even if you're talking about progress, even if you are talking about the achievement of the Vision 2050 of the EALA, you cannot talk about it with such value chains in confusion and uncertainty on the market. So this is something that we see. We have had very many takeaway points that we are going to interrogate, and we hope and be sure that we are going to give you updates. Last meeting we had the update report which we issued out, and of the meeting discussions, and we also shared the same with MAIF as the coordinating body. and coffee department, to see that these are the issues that we discussed. If you do not take them into consideration, then we will be in the same rooms. In fact, maybe in the early months of January, when they see concerns of Uganda's coffee denied on the market, maybe we'll go to MAIF offices. Who knows? Because we will have a standpoint on saying, we talked about this issue. Why didn't you listen to us? That's the best thing of having these discussions. It gives you a ground on saying, with cross-reference to this report, we know that we had these issues raised and you committed to acting on them. But then your inaction has led Uganda's coffee being denied on this such and such a market. What is the issue? So these are some issues that we will be integrating in our report and discussions. And allow me to send apologies again. Herbert, and who gave us the opening remarks, is traveling today. So that's why I'm giving you remarks on behalf of Siatini. So I'm wearing big boots, not even shoes, but boots. So I'm really humbled on that. But then, as also our last parting shots, is that we are going to be having the progress reports and status reports, and specifically having those developed knowledge materials by Cafe Africa to every stakeholder who is in this house, that we commit to get them, share them online, so that we can continuously enable learning and cross-reference in our interventions in the remaining days, With that, I close the session. For the logistics? Okay. Maybe now after closure, oftentimes I'm called to speak about logistics. Now I'm wearing my shoes.
Coffee is one of our flagship cash crops.
In the hills of Bugisu, coffee is more than a crop. It is a way of life passed down from generation to generation. But for many smallholder farmers, especially women and youth, the land they cultivate is not theirs.
Women, youth, and men have no equal opportunities because in most cases, unless otherwise, if say for instance we talk about youth, unless maybe your parents passed on and then you were able to inherit either a farm of coffee.
The women, unless if you made your own money, bought this land, registered it legally, and you own it, you can never have a coffee plantation that is fully yours.
If a woman wants to plant, you have to beg the husband to give you land. But at the end of the day, the husband is the one who takes to the market.
More authority or more powers are always in the hands of what? In the hands of men.
They grow the coffee, but they do not control the price. They are price takers in a system dominated by middlemen.
The price is not fair as a farmer because you discover that in between there are people whom we term as middlemen. Then this middleman will come and buy at a considerable, at a lower price as a farmer. Sometimes you can do a lot of work, but at the end of the day, what you get is just what? Minimum.
When the market dips, so do their hopes.
One of the issues that we've engaged on and worked on is the issue of making the coffee value chain work for all, but also improving the coffee value chain. And such efforts have involved or included mobilizing of farmers, smallholder coffee farmers, that include both men and women and the youth, but also engaging on some of the emerging policy initiatives and directives.
As a farmer, I have attended some dialogues in Kampala, whereby CRTN is trying to ensure that maybe government can set up a price. CRTN is saying that, but how, as a government, how do we regulate the pricing of the coffee so that the farmers can benefit? How can government help farmers to to improve on the production of coffee and also the quality of coffee.
In response to these challenges, Siatini Uganda, the Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiation Institute stepped in with the Fair for All Coffee Value Chain project. The initiative trained community members like Jen, helping farmers better understand the coffee market, know their rights, and strengthen their voices in trade and policy spaces.
As a monitor and as a farmer, we thank Siatini because Siatini has trained us as monitors. Siatini has engaged farmers with the other stakeholders in the value chains, because when I can mention Siatini, we had a dialogue meeting in Rosso, we had dialogue meetings in Nyondo, we had dialogue meetings in Upsana, we had dialogue meetings at the district level.
Through these trainings, farmers learned how to calculate the value of their produce and negotiate better prices. They are no longer selling blindly. They are asking questions, making demands, and slowly shifting from being price takers to informed sellers.
Now I can process my coffee and keep it, store it well, waiting for a good price compared to the first where I used to do without a training.
Whatever touches coffee, including changes in prices, affect not only coffee farmers or value chain actors, but also the country at large. The foreign exchange earnings reduce, job opportunities reduce. The changes, especially reduction in coffee prices, also means that it will deter long-term investment in the coffee sector. Some farmers might choose to cut down their trees, which is very bad and unfortunate.
Still, the challenges remain. Buyers offer inconsistent prices and most farmers can't afford to wait.
Sometimes when you are financially constrained, you cannot even look at those prices. You need the money. Even if somebody comes and says the kilo is 5,000 and the child is sick, will you wait for the prices? You pick that money.
We thrive on the misfortunes of Brazil. When they have frost, the prices are high, but we should stop thriving on the misfortunes of Brazil. We should begin to think about our own way forward with regard to this industry.
Jen, a community mentor trained by Siatini, explains how difficult it is to predict income from coffee.
Because you wake up in the morning, you say, the coffee now, today we are buying at 13,000. You wake up the next day, you go to a middleman or to the person saying, today I'm buying at 10,000.
She recalls seasons when farmers rushed to sell during low price periods, losing money and morale. That's why many are now calling for policy change.
They should ensure that UCDA is independent. It has now been cocooned in Ministry of Agriculture. UCDA used to move to community and at least give us information about the prices. It's no longer there. I don't know whether they stopped working or they are still working. And yet, the work it was doing was more of farmer-based. Now when they are there for us, we cannot even hear from them. We don't know the new quality, the new seedlings of coffee. We don't know what is growing well and what is not. So it is a big challenge.
Whoever grows coffee is affected by price fluctuations. So what do we need to do? We need to encourage everyone growing coffee to grow it as a business with innovations. We should look at productivity per unit area. What is it that we need to be able to live a good life using the available land that we have? So we need to include innovations, value addition, growing coffee with complementary crops that can bring in extra income, so that at the end of the day, when the price falls, you are able to sell at that price and still be able to live.
They want the return of cooperatives to protect them from exploitation.
If the government can be able to encourage cooperatives, that would be super.
A lot of jobs were generated in the cooperative movement. Let us go back to these fundamentals.
And most of all, they want a seat at the table when coffee policies are being shaped.
I want a government to involve farmers when they are making their policies, so that we are involved and we participate.
Siatini affirms that the coffee sector cannot be transformed without the input of farmers.
So one of the issues that we could, as a country, take up seriously and upscale is the issue of value addition. We are leveraging technology to be able to support our farmers and make the coffee sector thrive beyond surviving, and also be able to address the current issue, the most pressing issue of price volatility.
The organization is focused on empowering producers, especially women and youth, to understand trade systems, navigate pricing dynamics, and speak up in decision-making spaces.
In their advocacy, at least they have directed me the stakeholders of coffee in this coffee value chain. I can engage the district, the sub-county, the extension workers, and all those in the coffee value chain. Even the information they give us in terms of prices, the global market, the EU directives has helped me improve my coffee farming.
The Fair for All project is building a fairer value chain where farmers are not just producers, but negotiators and influencers.
Now the farmers are trying to know their rights. They are also trying to know that these services they can demand from government. There is one time we visited a sub-county, the farmers rejected some agricultural inputs, which were fake.
A fairer coffee economy begins with the farmer, with access to knowledge, a voice in policy, and the right to institutional support. Uganda's smallholder farmers can rise above reclaim control and brew a future that benefits them first.
There should be flexible policies in agricultural funding and accessing loans for farmers.
If insurance should also be put in place, because with agriculture, especially in the areas of coffee, there are some risks. If it can be insured, if the government can be able to encourage that, then at the same time, of course, this would be able to boost the farmer in case there is loss.
If coffee is processed here, even a younger farmer will know that coffee is not for export only, but it is a drink.
With Siatini walking beside them, the future is already brewing.